Hi, my name is Bourn. Welcome to my talk, How to Plan Your WordPress Site for Conversion. We're going to go back more to the design side of WordPress, following two great developer talks. We work with small business and entrepreneurs around the world to create conversion-focused websites to help turn their site visitors into clients for their services, customers for their products, and subscribers to their marketing campaigns. Today I'm planning to share with you some insight to our design process on how we help our clients achieve success by creating goal-oriented and focused websites, and applying this directly to working with WordPress and wrapping up with some examples that support our point of view. But before we get started, just a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Bourn. I'm one half of Bourn Creative. We're a design company just outside Sacramento that's been around since 2005. We provide print, brand, and web design services. And we've been working with WordPress since 2008 and probably have built around 200 WordPress sites since then. And we do design and development, meaning that we code what we build, but we focus mostly on design, which means I will argue with you about the exact shade of dark gray or light black to use on an element. On a personal note, the other half of Bourn Creative is my wife, Jen. We've been together about 15 years. We have 2 kids. I don't have a lot of downtime, but when I do, I play racquetball and collect more Star Wars Legos than any grown man should. Some people call it hoarding. So before we dive into our exact design process and digging into WordPress, I feel it's important to share kind of our core approach to design. We feel that design is a very deliberate process and not designing to make something look pretty or look great on the screen. We're designing a customer experience. We're not just designing a web page. To do this, we feel that the greatest designers and developers out there need to blend concepts from design, development, and marketing to create successful websites. And at the core and beneath that layer is you must understand the audience you're building for. As designers, we're not designing for ourselves. We're not designing for design awards or other designers. We're not even designing for our clients. We're designing for our clients' clients, our clients' customers. We design with them in mind first and building outwardly that way. Just like WordPress core, to achieve this, you must embrace the idea of decisions over options. You must make decisions at every step in the design process, even before one image is ever created in Photoshop, before one line of code is ever written. By using a process that is very decisive, you will create successful websites that convert. At the micro level, what we believe our conversion process, we like to call it the know, like, and trust, which leads to a conversion. Everything that we build in design, every site that we build, we want to answer some core questions for a site visitor in a very short amount of time when they land on a website or web page. We want to answer, who are you? What do you do? Should I even care? Followed up by, do I like you? Do I like what you have to say? Do I like what I see, or is it offensive to me? Does it talk to me? Then lastly, we get into the trust component of that is, are you an actual expert? Will your services help me? Is the product you're selling, will it solve the problem I'm having? Can you actually help me and have others like me found success with what you're selling or what you do? And the final part that we find, most designers and a lot of people are really great at establishing the know, like, and trust, but they forget about the conversion. The conversion is the most important part of this, and it has to be very obvious. You have to tell them, what do I do next? How do I get started? So once with that, that's our core belief in our conversion process. Our actual design process, this is the exact steps that we go through when we work with our clients. At the very beginning, we go through a goal setting exercise. And basically, it's the why. Why are we building this? What are you doing? What is the point of the project that we're working on? Once we have some established goals set, we move into creating exact strategies for creating the conversions to achieve those goals. Then once we have the rough framework of the conversion strategy down, the next step for us is actually to organize the content of the website to support the conversion strategy, which will achieve the goals that we've identified in the process. Only then do we actually move into the visual design and coding of the site. Otherwise, we're just making something that looks pretty and then later on trying to sandwich content into a design that we've built that we thought looked nice or the client looks nice. And this is another part that I feel gets left out on a lot of projects is the goal setting conversion strategy is done very well. The design and development is top notch, but then it comes down to the actual content design. That, especially in WordPress, at first you're building theme templates and functionality into the theme, and then the actual on-page content. I feel that this is almost as important, if not more important, than the actual design of the theme itself. A lot of times we get asked after we give these talks, okay, goal setting, that sounds great, but how do I get my clients to participate in this exercise well. So these are 3 questions that we always ask our clients if they're having a hard time stating the goals of the project. We always ask them, what does success look like to you? What is a successful project 60 days after launch? What does it look like? What does it look like in 1 year? Then we follow that immediately. What changes in your life as a result of this? What changes in your business? We find these 2 questions alone get them in the right mindset to focus in on establishing the right goals for their project. And then it allows us to follow up with the whole reason why we asked them what the goals in the first place. What do you want visitors to do on your site, and what do you want them to do in what order? It's about setting priorities for their goals. The easiest sites we've built have been focused on one particular goal. Lately, we've done several event sites for conferences with ticket prices that range anywhere from $500 to $2,000. And the whole purpose of the entire site was to sell tickets. So for us, it was very easy to design and build around because it had one established goal: click that button and buy the ticket. But typically, our small business and entrepreneur clients have multiple goals that they want to achieve on their site. And we call this the hire me, buy from me, learn from me approach. At the core, their number 1 priority is they want to hire them for their services. Number 2, the second priority is to buy from them. And buy from them if they don't sell products can also mean exchanging an email address, subscribing to a newsletter, subscribing to a blog, signing up for a free membership website. Whatever that process is, in today's world, emails are worth money. It may not be an immediate transaction, but you can read any marketing site out there and tell you eventually an email subscriber is worth money. And the final part, if they're not ready to hire you for their services, not ready to exchange their email address or buy their product, we wanted to learn from them to help establish that know, like, and trust factor, which will lead to a later conversion. And this is why we love working with WordPress so much, because of the whole when we truly believe in the power of blogging and using the long-form content on blogs to help establish the trust and credibility for a conversion website. All right, let's dig into WordPress a little bit. So when we're designing and building a site with a client, the very first thing that we start is with the navigation menus. And this is only after we have a clear idea of the content organization and the conversion strategy that we're trying to accomplish. Navigation menus give us the greatest control to try to direct users in a natural way how we want them to move through the site. And there's a number of factors that you must take into account when you're planning your WordPress navigation menus. The first that we always start with is, how many menus am I going to add to the site? Where am I going to put them? Am I going to put it above the header? Am I going to put it below the header? Am I going to put it in the header? Am I going to use 3 navigation menus in the header, or just 1 site-wide? Am I going to add a secondary navigation in the footer? Am I going to put a vertical menu in a sidebar? Am I going to have drop-down menus? A quick note on drop-downs: they typically don't convert well. I highly recommend not using them, and especially not long columns of drop-down menus. If you have so much content you feel the need to use drop-downs, consider sectional navigation, which I'll cover in a minute, or the use of super menus. Super menus is just a term. I'm not sure if it's an exact term in the design development world, but this is very popular on media sites and e-commerce sites to show the big, large menus, and you hover over them, they show tons and tons of content. And I have some examples that'll kind of show what I mean about that. And remember, when you're planning your WordPress menus, it doesn't always have to be a list of links. You can use CSS, you can use filters, and my personal favorite, the Walker Nav menu class in WordPress, to output extras like search bars, menu descriptions to turn your menu links into almost like call to action buttons. And then also with WordPress, using the conditionals that are available in WordPress to think about it, am I going to have this menu on every single page? How about if I'm going to use custom templates and have certain menus only available on certain sections of the site? And then we get back to sectional navigation, like I said before. Instead of using long drop-downs of menus of submenus of sections in a site, consider the use of sectional menus inside custom templates. So when you're in a particular section, I have a good visual example coming up on this. Instead of having a long drop-down to get to submenus that relate to a top-level menu item, add sectional navigation. This can be done in menu widgets in a sidebar. It can be done with custom code above a content area. So once we have our navigation strategy down, how we want to help guide the visitors through the site while we're designing the look and how people are going to move, we get into the theme templates. And we have 3 core concepts that we like to approach when we're working on a conversion-oriented site. Number 1 is our homepage template. Homepages are so important with small business and entrepreneur websites, and so often people want to do too much with their homepage. We encourage our clients, we're just trying to do one thing on the homepage. We're trying to establish as much as we can of that know, like, and trust factor. The odds are it's not going to happen immediately, so our conversion goal for the homepage is strictly just to get another click, to read more about who they are and what they do, and to see if their services or products can solve their problems. And that leads us into custom templating within a theme. For any site, for any page that's important in the conversion process, we always recommend the use of a full-width template and not using sidebars. So you can eliminate that visual distraction and use a single column of content to focus the reader on what's going on the page. For critical points in the conversion process, we recommend creating custom templates. Some people call them landing page templates, sales, they have different names. A quick example on a successful conversion project that we did was for a publisher that publishes an actual print magazine and does an online version, and she had a two-step subscription process. First, you gave your name and your email address to subscribe to the digital version, and then the next page you had to give your actual physical address to receive the once-a-month print edition. And that's where all her revenue came in, was through the print magazine and ad revenue. And she thought the solution was, oh, I just need more website traffic. And I said, no, that's not what's behind the core of conversion optimization. It's doing more with the traffic you already have. So when we created the new theme for her, we created a custom template strictly for that page, which removed everything. All the navigation menus, the header, the sidebars, the footer, and the footer widgets. And then it was basically just a blank sheet in WordPress, added a simple branded image, very distinct instructions to add that call to action to help them, hey, to get your subscription, you need to fill out your name, address, a very beautifully, simply designed form with a giant call to action button. The result within 30 days after site launch, and it's still holding true to this day, is around a 28% higher conversion rate with no increase in website traffic. So once we get beyond the initial templates in the conversion process, we start getting into the add-ons that come in a WordPress theme, sidebar areas and widgets. For a conversion-oriented site, in your sidebars, you need to limit the clutter and distraction. And this could be things like social media widgets that are pulling in Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds. If you're going to use something like that, they need to remain in the social part of WordPress on the blog. But pages that are using a sidebar that are important, you've worked so hard to get people to get them to your site, quit giving them opportunities to leave. Quit reminding them, hey, it's been 5 minutes since I've been on Twitter and shared what I had for lunch with my friends. You want to keep them focused on your content and not provide a mental reminder to bolt off your site. Then this is where we get into using the same logic and code that's available using WordPress menus is conditional sidebars. Conditional content based on where they are in the site. So you can, and if you don't have the need for necessarily conditional sidebars to have completely different sidebars of where they are in the site, you can use different codes and various plugins just to create conditional widgets within those sidebars. From a design standpoint of view, be very wary of long sidebars. I see this all the time because people just like to add all kinds of stuff to sidebars. It's just like a bucket. And if your sidebar extends past the length of your content, you either need to remove items from your sidebar, add more content to the page, or change the template. Nowadays, most WordPress themes have a widgetized footer. So if one thing I can take away from this is remember your footer is an anchor for your website. It's not a trough. It's not there to shove everything in your site that you couldn't cram in your sidebar, you couldn't cram in your navigation. Your footer is going to be on every single page of your website. And if you're a typical website scanner like I am and most conversion theorists show, you land on a page, you flick the magic mouse, you hit the bottom of the site, and as you're visually scanning, then you decide whether or not you're going to read it. That footer needs to anchor your website and provide some hierarchy to your site of where you want people to move through. So once your theme, everything's designed in your theme, where we find is so important is the actual design of your content. And this is nothing new, but it's something that we always, there's different things, different phases of content design. When you're actually doing the actual layout of your pages, you want to design it for scanning, breaking it up in short, easy-to-read blocks of content. And you can achieve this using headlines, subheadlines, lists, captions, block quotes, pull quotes. And to remind you that people absorb images more than text. So be very selective about the images that you use on your site, how you use them, And then while you're designing a website, remember, it's very simple to add custom unordered list styles using background images, simple CSS, or icon fonts, rather than to have them available within the theme, rather than just the ugly little round dots, or even worse, the squares that you see in some WordPress sites. You can add, and I have some examples coming up soon as well. We add what we call feature boxes, testimonial boxes to a website, just done with simple CSS. And then don't forget to build into your WordPress sites matching branded custom buttons. It's for text links in certain cases are the right choice when you're creating a conversion site, but the primary action you want someone to click on a page or a post, it's very simple to add custom matching buttons that make it available within the site. So I'm not going to nerd out on design on you guys because I could spend an hour talking about all of these things, but these are the core concepts of design that we find are very important when you're trying to work on a site based on conversion. Number one is your topography. Topography is 80 to 90% of web design in and of itself, so choose your topography wisely. It's going to set the look and the feel and the tone of your entire website. Next is imagery, and I say imagery over images. In today's web, I consider imagery anything that is non-text, but it's visual. That could be logos, icons that you use, videos, and besides the photos that you use on your website. White space, the big trend in white spaces right now in design, well, it's not a trend. It's been around forever, just some people forgot about it. And then finally, color. It's a good idea to start digging into a little bit of color theory because color means certain things in marketing and design, and depending on who your target market is, those colors mean different things depending on who you're building the site for. Like we're building a site for a client in Sweden. Well, their color palette, what means to people in Sweden means a whole lot different than what it means to Americans. So their core market is Swedes, so we have to build focused on them. So after all this, here's 5 signs that we find when we're building sites or inheriting sites to work on. These are the top 5 signs that we find that your site won't convert. Number one, and it seems obvious, but it's the biggest mistake we always see, there's no clear call to action. You've established the know, like, and trust you provide. Your site is beautiful, it's laid out perfectly, and you have great content, but there's no clear call to action. Number 2 is too many choices. If you provide too many choices to a user, they most likely are not going to make the one that you want. You can limit the choices you give them throughout the design process. And the number one way that we see this is using the navigation menus. The third is visual distractions. This should go without, this is things like auto-rotating sliders, auto-playing videos, auto-playing audio, annoying pop-ups, any type of motion that's either a distraction or startling to a user. Too much text. This is where you, on pages that are high in conversion, I believe long text pages don't do well, but this is where we love WordPress. The blogging side of WordPress is perfect for long-form content. Long-form content with great information is great for search engines, it's great for social sharing, and it's the perfect spot to help establish the credibility when building a site. And the final is the lack of trust. And this is there's not an exact thing you can pin down, but this tends to be, can be anything from broken elements on a site. Maybe the site works great in some browsers, but it wasn't tested in others. So the visitors that are coming in from there, it just doesn't look quite right. Whatever that is, it's a very subjective point of view, but it's one of the things just makes that person not click that buy button or fill out that contact form. So we always ask ourselves and ask our clients these 3 basic questions anytime that we're working on a site. If this is going to help with the conversion. We ask, is this going to enhance the user experience? Is it going to add value to my site overall? And is this going to move the visitor toward a conversion? If the answer is no to anything of any of these questions, do not add it to your site. So let's look at some examples. And so the next examples I'm going to show are some WordPress sites that we've built, some that are not WordPress sites, and just some other WordPress sites that I think illustrate the points I'm trying to make. So here's a site we built for a lawyer's office. Nobody likes lawyers. I know I don't. Mine charges me $20 just to send me an email. So this client hired us. They had great organic search traffic, but they weren't converting their customers. So we decided to create a site to help establish that know, like, and trust. We ran the navigation menu at the top of the browser, ran a filter on the menu to output the phone number and a click to email link. It seems basic, but his target market was old people who weren't very internet savvy. So having those two right there and the 1-800 number, the toll-free number, increased conversions crazy, just that alone. The imagery, we feel is very powerful. Kind of looks like Easter Sunday at grandma's house. Kind of makes you warm and fuzzy. Kind of forgets that he's a lawyer's office. Then we used a secondary menu right in the header to direct the people to the core 5 areas of his business, how he can help you. So in a matter of seconds, you land on the site, you get to know what he does. Yeah, you kind of like him, maybe you trust him, and then the conversion, we want them to click on one of those links to learn more about if they can help you. This is a WordPress site that we didn't build, but this is typical of what you would see in a software startup company, maybe a small product company. This one I think is done very well. Very simple, it's clean. They made choices in the menus to use icons, search bars, a couple different links. And how can you miss that call to action? Here's the first example. They chose to use a super menu, and this is probably the easiest one. This is just done with CSS. From a design standpoint, I don't particularly like it, but it's better than having that entire nav bar completely full of links with multiple drop-down menus. Where I think this site excels is the custom templating inside their support section. You get into there, it's a custom template. They're using sectional navigation. They have a conditional sidebar where that content only shows up in that section of the website. And their conversion for this goal for this page is, I'm assuming, they don't want people to contact support. So there's their solution. Download this printer. Our stuff only works with this. So they've highlighted that using just a simple CSS3 button. Here's a site we built for a fashion designer. We didn't even know what this industry was when the client hired us. So we had to say, how do we establish what you do in a very short amount of time? So we made the decision, and the client bought off on it, to use only 3 links in the navigation menu. 3 main links, and we put the header menu in the upper right, or the primary menu in the upper right of the header on purpose in very light gray to de-emphasize it. To help establish what the client did, she hired professional models and professional photographers to show what she does. So without reading anything, you can get a general sense of hey, do I like what you're selling? And the artist is on the right-hand side. And if you were like me and you're a scanner, if you scroll down to the footer, it was an uncluttered footer design, repeated the most important menu items if someone went down, and in 2 sentences, the client summed up her entire business. So someone lands on the site. It's very clean and very simple. Here's the site for Alaska Pacific University. This is a WordPress site. We didn't build it, but it illustrates the concepts I presented. The top menu is a global menu. Ran a filter out at the end to output their 1-800 number in a search bar. Their main core next to the header, they're using the Walker Nav menu class to output the descriptions. This is one of my favorite things to do as a design company for the sites we've been building lately, where you have your main single word text links, then with the little short descriptions as call to actions. And if you notice on the top, you're on the home page, and then on the bottom example, you're in another section. You notice the blue bar changes. So they either use templates or plugins or code to change that secondary menu based on where they're at in the site. This is not a WordPress site, but there's no reason why it can't. So this is where to start thinking of super menu. This is another example of a super menu that it doesn't have to be a list of links. This is using images, has some call to action buttons. And this is where I think Mercedes does a really good job on this. And this is their solution for a sectional navigation. So rather than cluttering up their pages, they have a very, very focused sectional navigation. So if you're interested in this model of car, you can get all the information you need without having to go back to drop-down menus or trying to find that. Here's an event site we did for a client that was last weekend. And I just thought it was interesting because we intentionally buried the navigation almost below that magical, mythical fold number. It's down almost 600 pixels because all we wanted them to do was to click on that button. The client used a professional photo of herself. It helps that she's she's an attractive woman, and human faces convert well. She exceeded her sales goals. Here's a super menu for an e-commerce site. It's it's not WordPress, but there's no reason why this can't be WordPress. Here's just a quick example of some unordered list styles. So when you're scanning a page, these are very easy to program into a theme. These are just done with background images, but you can create certain shapes with CSS and you can use icon fonts. So when you're scanning a page, these are going to jump out at you. And the icons that you use, whether it's a check mark, a triangle, or an arrow, is going to help guide the visitor and help reinforce the story you're trying to tell. Here's just a couple of examples of what we call feature boxes. And all they are is simple CSS classes to change some of the fonts and change the background colors. It doesn't really show up well on this screen, but that's like a light blue, and then this is almost like a pink color with a border on it. And the top has a border radius and box shadows, and they're all designed to match the theme. Here's a great example of a superhero by Jake's company, 10up, of where they're pulling in the latest news article. They have sectional navigation, then a little interactivity from a map. And this is definitely a WordPress site. It is done very well. And the same site, this is their footer. They anchored the site very well. They repeated the interactivity of the map, have a secondary menu, then they have the links to their social networks. The example below is from a software company that I had never heard of, and no one in this room has probably heard of it either, but this is where they anchored their site using the trust logos to show that, hey, we're not just two kids in a dorm room. We've been featured on these. Everyone knows who those media outlets are in this room. So as a software company, they're helping establish that trust and legitimacy of, hey, I'm not just on a MacBook in a Starbucks and calling myself a startup. So the whole goal of my presentation is just to get you to think differently about your next project, to approach design differently. So to sum up, we encourage you to start your next project with goals. Create strategies to support those goals, and then plan your design with real content. Using placeholders will just pollute your ideas. It will not be effective. You must use visual design and development to support the real content and not try to wedge it in afterwards. And remember, decisions over options will always win. The sooner you can make decisions on how you want to build this site, the conversion process you want to see, it will be more successful. So here's my call to action. If you like what I had to say, you're a designer, you're a developer, you love small businesses, come find me later. We're always looking for great people to join our team. Thank you very much.